What is going on, guys? Crucible here, and today we're going to be talking about the new update that's coming this week pertaining to the draft mode. We're going to talk about what the draft mode entails, and then we're going to kind of talk about like some things you kind of want to look for and kind of in terms of how you want to construct and build these decks when you go and play these matches. So if you guys want to see some draft mode stuff, let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, let's kind of get into it. So there will be an update on Thursday morning, Eastern Standard, from 3 to 9 a.m. I believe that's around like 5 a.m. my time. But they're implementing a new battle mode, and obviously you'll have to update through the launcher. But it's the select match. They're calling the draft mode select match. It'll be coming out on Thursday after the update. And the way this is kind of going to work, if you guys don't know what draft mode is, there's Magic the Gathering has like a draft mode. There's like a simulated draft mode that you can do for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. There's like websites and stuff for that. But basically, it's like an experiment in deck construction. It all pertains to being given options that you pick from to build the deck that you want to play in that instance. So we'll kind of go into it here. But so basically the way it's going to work is that you either spend 150 gems or a single ticket in order to join the select match. 150 gems I don't think is too bad, considering depending on what the rewards are in terms of how you perform, and we'll get into that later. Depending on what the rewards are by the end of doing the select match is really just going to depend on if the gems are worth it. In terms of tickets, I don't know how we don't know how you acquire tickets. We're probably gonna find this out on Thursday after the update. But yeah, so you pay 150 gems or a single ticket to join in. Honestly, I don't think it's too bad. They could have easily been like, oh, drop 500 gems to partake, and they decided to go for 150. I'm pretty sure, for example, we can look and see like what the prices are. Yeah, so for $2, if you really wanted to play matches and you don't have the gems for it, you can spend $2 real currency to, you know, opt in for it and potentially even get some gems back. You could potentially get those gems back. So, I mean, I don't think that's all that bad. But anyway, the way this works is that you're going to be given 3 cards that pertain to the leaders. You'll pick a leader card from that specific group, and then 2 groups of 1 to 3 cards will appear after you select that leader. And you will choose between either of those instances of cards. Then you do that continuously until you build their 40-card deck. And then once you build your 40-card deck, you'll be taken into matchmaking, where you'll face off in a series of matches. This will go on until you complete either 7 wins in those matches or 3 losses, withdraw from the event entirely, or when the event period is reached. So it's not clear if this is going to be a permanent game mode, or if maybe there's like certain prizing that's only available during the event period. It's hard to say. It's kind of hard to say. They give us kind of a basic structure of how this is going to work, but they don't really touch up on like rewards. They don't touch up on like the event period itself and what that means. But yeah, so again, this is basically just kind of building your own deck based off of some pre-generated cards that are offered to you. More than likely, by picking a leader card, you will probably be given card options that pertain to that color. So if you pick like blue trunks, you'll get blue cards to select from. Red will get red, green will get green, so on and so forth. This is really cool. I've been saying for a long time that while the client is a good time and it's a great way to play the game, if it is strictly just ranked and free play, and like tables, like it's not going to have longevity. And having game modes like this is great to extend the longevity of the game. Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel has like a new event going every like month, every like 2 weeks, something along those lines. And there's like restrictions in terms of what you can build, what you're able to play and stuff. So I think it's good that something like this is coming to. I think it's good that this is coming to it. And we also know that tournament modes are going to be coming too. So online tournament modes are going to be brought into the digital client too. So depending on how this is run, the way that like the matchmaking works, it's possible that the tournament structure will also be the exact same. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see when that happens. But I mean, that's really all in terms of like the news itself. But let's kind of go into the colors, talk about some leaders that I think would be good for this type of game mode, and just kind of go over some general rule of thumbs that I like to follow when it comes to stuff for like pre-release. So in terms of like what leaders you kind of want to look at, right? I kind of look at draft modes similarly to how I would go into my pre-release at my local game store. Generally, the general rule of thumb when it comes to doing pre-release or draft mode, the more generic the leader, the better. And I'm not saying that like it needs to be the most bare bones, right? I'm saying like in terms of synergies and stuff that you want to run, and decks you want to build, the less restrictions on the card, the better, essentially. So for example, you got like U7 Goku. U7 Goku I don't think would be the worst deck, like the worst kind of leader to run in this draft mode. The majority of red cards are Universe 7, so you can play around with this skill and probably get some, benefit out of doing it. But this is more or less what I'm talking about, is that you want to try and avoid leaders like Topku, for example, where Topku needs 20k power or less and Tournament of Power, right? That's a heavy restriction for a leader like Topku. And because you're not really getting the choice, the entire choice of how you want to build your deck, and you can only build the deck based on the cards that the selection gives you, you can't really predict if you're going to find that 20k power or less tournament power card, right? So having restrictions like this on your leader is not going to benefit you when it comes to playing against your games. So something like Universe 7, while there is the restriction of U7, it's not the hardest like restriction to get over, considering like the amount of U7 cards in red. But a leader like Topku with the heavy restriction that he has, you may not want to consider running him, right? Beerus and Starter Coup are actually like really solid examples in terms of what kind of leaders you want to roll with. Having a crit option on your front side, and then having the having the ability to just -10 on something on the board is going to go extremely far, especially in a draft style like this. Starter Coup is also a solid option because there's no restrictions on his ability whatsoever, just like Beerus. And you can apply that 5,000 like whenever, once per turn, on your turn, or on your opponent's turn. Like, these are two solid leaders that I think everyone should be like trying to pay attention for going into the draft mode, because obviously, because of how generic and non-restricted these leaders are, they're going to be the best things for you to play. Now, if we go over to blue, we can take a look at blue. Goku Black is not something you want to run, because he specifically wants Zamasus, and he specifically wants Goku Blacks. And I love the Goku Black deck. I think the Goku Black deck is great. It is not great in draft mode. Because you're not able to guarantee the cards that you're going to be building into your deck, having these types of restrictions are going to heavily set back the leader. Now, that's not to say you can't run Goku Black and you can't find some success, but why would you give yourself that option is the thing. Why would you restrict yourself when going into a already restricted game format? So Goku Black I don't think is a good leader. Trunks is really good, mainly due to the fact that, once again, his leader ability. It's a good control aspect, being able to bounce stuff on board either for yourself or for your opponent is actually really good. Vegeta's really good so long as you can keep your hand size below 7 or less. That's a little restrictive, but you can make that work because blue is all about, you know, comboing and making sure your hand size stays small. Zamasu, you could maybe make Zamasu work. I think in a draft format, these 25k leaders are actually going to be doing a lot for you, even just for the sake of just survivability and just making sure your life isn't taken as quickly, right? And since his restriction is just paying energy and discarding and being at 2 life or less, you could probably make Zamasu work, and I think you would actually be fine. Yeah, I mean, blue I think will be a solid option just because I think you got 3 leaders that you can choose from, whereas with red you maybe have 2 good leaders and 1 kind of questionable leader. You can make blue work for you, I think, in draft. Now for green. I don't know where green is going to lie. Because the problem with green is all the green leaders have no restrictions, really. You have very little restrictions. The problem with green, specifically, is that they need to ramp. So the leader card, I think, in question isn't really going to be the biggest factor when it comes to drafting. It's going to be the cards that you grab for green. And we'll get into stuff you kind of want to look for when you're looking at individual cards. But just saying outright, I don't think green leaders have an issue here. I think you could probably go for any of these leaders, and I think you would actually be okay. Cell might be the only one where I would maybe say is probably not worth running, just because it's not so much about the restriction that he has. It's more so the fact that you can only activate this at a specific point in the match. And if you can't build your deck in a way that allows you to proc that ability, then it's not going to be easy for you to come out on top in draft mode. I mean, 17 needs to be at 6 energy, so again, ramp's important, but there's no restriction in terms of this outside of that, and it's a very easy thing to do if you can ramp. So 17 would probably be really good. Gohan, once again, you got to be able to ramp, and you got to be able to keep that energy pool up to make use of his abilities. So he's a bit restrictive, but not too restrictive, considering that you can just proc this whenever. It's just a matter of how fast can you ramp your energy to keep going. Broly will probably be the best option. Being a 30k swinger on attack, and being able to draw with that power, I think is good. But again, it all pertains to what can you run with Broly to kind of help him out. And then you get to yellow. Ginyu is not a good option. I don't think Ginyu should be something you should choose. He requires a lot of Ginyu Force cards, and so that's very archetype restrictive. You don't want to limit yourself in terms of what you're able to run when you don't really have the option to pick the cards you want. So I think Ginyu is probably a no-go. I would probably also say that while coolers, it can also be Cooler can be easier to run. The problem with Cooler, though, is that you need Frieza Clan. And again, you're not always going to have the option of being able to run Frieza Clan. You might be limited in what you're able to add to your deck because, again, you have 1 to 3 cards to choose from, and you have 2 groups that you can choose from. So it's going to be, again, it's heavily dependent on how you build it, but I don't think Cooler is going to be one that you necessarily want to go in with. Yellow Vegeta, I think, will be really good. Yellow Vegeta, I think, will be just fine. Being able to actively switch stuff to rest mode, switch stuff to active mode in your energy at the end of your turn, I think is really good. The problem will be is that when you're going through and you're drafting your stuff, you want to try to keep an open mind with energy, or not energy, with extra cards is what you want to kind of do. I think Frieza will probably be the best for yellow just because setting 2 battle cards to active will keep sustainability going for you, and I mean, that's just really strong. And Frieza's got a lot of blocker options, which is really good with his ability. He's got a lot of cards. Yellow's got a lot of cards that you want to kind of try and keep inactive as best as possible. So I think Frieza will probably be the best leader for you here. Now, that's basically all the leaders. That's who I would suggest. Now, in terms of battle cards, it's really going to be dependent on how you want to build it. And because of the way that the draft format's going to work, you're giving 2 options of 1 to 3 cards each, and you're picking the grouping. You're not picking the individual cards, right? So you might have cards where like you have something generic like this TN, but then you also have something like this with this Paparoni, who, depending on what you get in later picks, may not be able to assist you. So you kind of need to keep in mind, and you want to look at groupings where all of the abilities are going to benefit you in some manner, like an all-encompassing manner, right? So running into stuff like Self-Awakeners is going to help you a lot. Running into stuff with like KO abilities or minusing abilities will actually be really good. You maybe want to try and avoid cards that are very like cost specific. So like this Tournament of Power, if you're running U7, obviously you may not necessarily want to run the Basil to search for Tournament of Power stuff when you may not necessarily have the option to draft stuff from Tournament of Power. So that's the kind of stuff you want to keep in mind. Obviously cards like this are not good. For the sake that, yeah, like you specifically need a card like Annihilaza here. You have 1 Annihilaza card in the entire game. So if you don't, in the draft mode, if one of your selections doesn't have that Annihilaza, but you pick this the first time, then this is a dead card in hand. This does nothing for you except for combo power. So that's the kind of stuff you want to kind of keep in mind going into the draft mode. Like I said, red, Self-Awakeners, like obviously, like Kaioshin is one that's like maybe questionable. If you're not running Beerus, this guy's a dead card in hand. So that like this is where you kind of just need to like really sit and think when you're selecting. And there shouldn't be like a limit in terms of like how long it takes for you to draft stuff. I think you can really sit down and take your time before going into the matches. Just a thought. But yeah, so like obviously like Harumaki would be something that would be a little questionable because you got some Trunks future battle cards, but like you really kind of want to couple this with the leader and those battle cards. So if you're not running the leader and those battle cards, like Harumaki does nothing for you. Probably looking at stuff like Zamasu. Zamasu actually could be really good in like every deck. You don't necessarily need him to be in Goku Black specifically. So Zamasu would be a kind of card that would actually benefit every blue deck that you'd be playing, at least to some capacity, right? You're at least filtering your hand. Yeah, kind of looking at like the grand scope of things. Like this Gotenks, like if you're not able to draft the 4-drop Gotenks, like this Gotenks doesn't help you in any way. So this is the kind of stuff you want to keep in mind when you're like drafting. Let's look at some options in green. Let me see here. Cell, like the Cell may not necessarily be a good pick because you need Earthlings specifically. So if you're not drafting Earthlings, Cell's not going to really be able to help you. Same with this Krillin. I mean, this Krillin could be good for extra cards, so like Krillins may not be a terrible option, but if you're not running 18s, like that's a problem. So, because then you're basically limiting what your search options are for the deck you're trying to build here, right? And again, it all really just counts. It all really just matters in terms of like this Trunks. If you're not running the 5-cost Gohan, this guy can at least like give you some ramp options into the mid to late match. So, and then you have other 5 costs or more that can be removed, so his ability can still go into effect. But the Gohan specifically, I mean, you have some options with him, but you probably might get more. You might get more help with Trunkses over this guy. Really, just depends on the deck you're able to build. Yeah, like obviously this Broly like is dead in hand if you're not playing the Broly leaders, so obviously don't go for him. Let's take a look at some yellow options here. Like this Cooler, you're not going to run this Cooler if you're not running the 4-drop Cooler, so like picking him up would actually not help you out whatsoever. I think Bulma can still be pretty good, despite the fact that you need like 3 costs in your specific deck. I think there's still a place for her there. If you're not running the Trunks Youth, Goten's not going to really benefit you any. Vice versa, it works the same way. Stuff like this Krillin could actually be like decent, depending on how your deck is built. Just a generic ability like this, just choose up to 2 of your opponent's battle cards with a cost of 1 and switch them to rest mode. Like, stuff like that can actually go a long way, and you'd be surprised. But yeah, like, if you're not running the Ginyu package, then, like, some of the Ginyu stuff isn't going to be worthwhile to run. Yeah, like, this Whis could actually be really good in this format, considering that for 1 energy, he's a double blocker, or a double attacker, however you want to like, use him. But yeah, that's going to kind of do it for this, guys. Just some general ideas in terms of how you want to go about constructing your deck, things you want to look for in terms of your leader and battle cards as you're kind of drafting. The update will be coming out tomorrow, so we will be going live in the evening with some of the draft mode. We'll be streaming here on YouTube as well as on Twitch, so if you guys want to join us, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching and hanging out. If you guys did enjoy the video today, please consider hitting that like button. It goes a long way to supporting the content, as well as helping us hit the algorithm. And if you would like to subscribe and see more Fusion World content, feel free to do that as well. But that's going to do it, guys. Thank you guys so much for the love and support, as always, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Peace.